Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, Parler, and Instagram. And of course, be sure to visit www.mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
Is that Chris Jellick over there?
Is he doing something completely weird? Senior prank day. But we'll see all kinds of dumb stuff today. Swim captain will have Thai food delivered to class, and Becky Vaughn will set up her homemade slip and slide.
This is high school. Nothing that happens here matters in the real world.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 318. Out now exclusively on the Daily Wire is Run, Hide, Fight, an action thriller that stars Isabelle May as a teenager who takes on a group of gunmen who have taken siege of a small town school. An intense watch filled with excellent performances and stakes aplenty. Run, Hide, Fight is also the latest film produced by Dallas Sonnier, whose credits also include Bone Tomahawk and Dragged Across Concrete. And I'm happy to say that Dallas Sonnier joins me right now on the podcast. Dallas, I thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So the first time you came across the script for Run, Hide, Fight, what was it that really drew you to the story and to Kyle Rankin as a filmmaker? He wrote and directed the movie.
I had seen Kyle on season 2 of Project Greenlight back in the day, so I was familiar with who he was, but I was also a fan of some of the movies that he had made independently in the time between Project Greenlight and me receiving the Run, Hide, Fight script. So I was excited to get a script from him and from his agent. What drew me to this specific project was a combination of things. One, I think that my own personal tragedies of losing my parents in separate situations of domestic gun violence clearly has influenced my decision to make movies like this, both to explore the level of violence in movies, but also I was drawn to the idea of a person having a chance to fight back in a situation like this, frankly, in ways that neither of my parents had. So there was a personal connection there. I think also sort of more relevant to my career per se is I have always tried to find movies where the story deserves to be told, but the morality police in big Hollywood are simply too afraid of it, or worse, have decided that it shouldn't be told.
Yeah.
So when people tell me, "Oh, you can't make this movie," it's a lot of times a signal to me that it should be made.
You know, it was interesting when I was doing research for this film. I came across an interview you did on Fox back in 2018, and you even made mention of Run, Hide, Fight back then, and you were talking about how it was a struggle trying to get actors to attach themselves to the script, because while they liked the story, the whole kind of school shooting kind of setting kind of turned some people off. I'm just curious, who was that first person that really took the big decision to really step up and attach themselves to the project?
The first actor to attach themselves was Thomas Jane.
Yeah.
I had really a lot of interest in casting the young kids as up and comers. I felt like if we had gone with a big Disney star or something like that, it would have been distracting. Although Isabelle certainly has led her own show before on Netflix, most of our audience was unaware of who she was at the time. So I really honed in on the mother and father roles of Zoe, the lead girl, as the cast anchors. I knew I could cast people who were a little bit older, had some clout in terms of actor value and name recognition and things like that. So I employ a process that I have called the Louisiana cousin test.
Yes.
And what I do is I text I've got two of my cousins from Louisiana, and I text them names of actors to get their reactions. And Thomas Jane, he's been the Punisher. He's on The Expanse. A lot of people really love him. And so they were super excited about it. So I cast Thomas as the father of Zoe, and that led to a validation of the project. It didn't make it any easier in terms of finding the distribution or raising the money or things like that, but it did allow me to point to an actor who had been willing to put their reputation on the line and join the movie. And so that was really exciting. And Thomas and I, as well as Kyle Rankin and Amanda Presmick, the producer, we've all become very close friends. And we're sharing in the success of this moment together.
And speaking success, I'd say that this is a star-making role for Isabelle May. You mentioned before she has been on shows before, feature films though. This is the first time I've seen her in one. And in my review, I wrote that she really does remind me of the first time I saw Jennifer Lawrence in Winter's Bone some 10 years ago. She has that kind of presence, and her performance in the movie is just electric. I mean, I think she's just fantastic. Casting Isabelle, did you know of her beforehand? What's the process like in trying to find someone to fill that role, because it's such a huge role? She's on the screen the majority of the time, and she's just terrific in it.
Yeah, we have a head of casting executive out in Los Angeles named David Guglielmo, and he's terrific at finding up and coming actors that are going to be the next this person or that person. And Isabelle had read for a previous film of ours, a movie called VFW, and ultimately was not cast, but I was aware of her. And so when we were talking about Run, Hide, Fight, David and I discussed Isabelle for the role and had her audition for Kyle. And to Kyle's credit, he knew right away, she was the person. We did explore a number of actors in that role, and really, had a very wide casting call. And in fact, my appearance on Fox News led to a bunch of people reaching out for the role, and it was exciting to audition some of them. Two of which came and worked on the movie in other roles. So it was really pretty great experience to see everyone sort of rally up against in pursuit of the movie. But Isabelle is a star. She has star quality to her in a way that is both innate, but also a testament to the way that she was raised, her parents, her family, her way of life, and her commitment to her own moral code, which I'm such a fan of. And I think, when we were in the process of casting her, we had a number of phone conversations with her to basically make sure that she came into this with eyes wide open, understanding the challenges this movie was going to face. And she had very thoughtful questions and comments, and really had a grasp that was wise beyond her years. And I think the movie works and succeeds on so many levels, but also due to her in that lead role, just knocking it out of the park.
Another thing that I think works so well in the movie is the depiction of the violence. And what I mean by that is, when you're dealing with a scenario that this film has, the violence in it needs to feel real. The stakes need to feel high. And I think something that really worked is that what you didn't do in the movie, which is Isabelle doesn't become some type of action hero dispensing martial arts skills from out of nowhere. And I feel that in the hands of lesser filmmakers, that could happen, because the temptation to do so is so high, because that just seems to be the trend to do so. How important was that aspect to keep that from the violence from not being watered down? And hence, by not watering it down, you keep the stakes high and you keep everything so palpable.
I think Kyle always had that objective going into the production never to make the movie feel exploitative in the violence. Certainly, there's a level of exploitation whenever you make a genre movie, but not to push it into a level of feeling provocative for the sake of provocation. That's never. I don't enjoy being in that space. So Kyle was laser sharp in his commitment to threading that needle.
Yeah.
I think we were also uh, uh, massively aided by the work of Darren Moran, the director of photography, who came in early, sat down with Kyle over a matter of weeks, learned the school, and really the two of them would close the door and design these amazing shots. And Darren, had a very special camera rig that he was using and things like that. So it was a wild team effort. But I have to say, my inspiration when it came to the violence and the way of showcasing it is naturally influenced by my work with another filmmaker named S. Craig Zoller.
Yes.
And Zoller, I've learned the most from anyone in my entire career working with him. And Zoller, if you look at especially Bone Tomahawk and Brawl and Cell Block 99, but even Dragged Across Concrete, Zoller has a tendency to shoot the action scenes in a wide and allow the violence to sort of take place and allow the actors to do the work that they need to do in camera. And so we benefited from my history with Zoller in that we were so committed to practical effects and we were committed to the sort of the clinical nature of the violence and things like that. I think it really pays off. So I feel bad for the crew that had to pull this off because it was such a giant undertaking. But I insisted that all of the screens in the movie, from the TV screens to the phones, the cell phone screens, and things like that, it had to be practical, completely practical. And in fact, there's only one, maybe two shots in the movie where we couldn't pull it off. And the good news is I don't think anyone could point those two shots out. But the whole movie, I mean, for the most part, is completely practical. And I think it helps because nothing is worse than when you see a computer screen on a TV, or a TV screen, and it's complete CGI nonsense.
Yep. And I 100% agree with that too. When I think what I really love about your films, Dallas, is that the philosophy behind it. This film is released under your Bonfire Legend label. Before that, you had Cine State and you worked in other things as well. But the philosophy always remained the same. The filmmaker always comes first. You work within a limited budget. And the movies are often, correct me if I'm not, often in the R-rated kind of realm as well.
If even R-rated. Some of them are what we would call unrated. But yes, absolutely. No, we're very much we don't fuss too much over the rating.
Yeah, and when it comes to what you're going to do in Bonfire now, are you continuing on with that philosophy as well? Are you looking to kind of expand outside of that as well? Because as you become more successful, I'm sure maybe there's a temptation to make budgets become bigger or delve into different areas of filmmaking. With the future of Bonfire, are we looking at pretty much the same type of philosophies that Cinestate had as well?
I would say the easiest way to describe Bonfire for folks who followed my career is essentially, a sort of an expansion of Cinestate, minus the horror films that we were releasing through Fangoria, as we've now sold that brand.
Yep.
So yes, we will become more bold in our journey. When it comes to budgets and creative, sort of commitments to when it comes to the movies that appeal to us and that ultimately appeal to our audience, I think that the key here more than anything is creative freedom.
Yeah.
So I will quit before I lose creative freedom. And naturally, when you go up and up and up in budget, you lose your creative freedom. You just do. You're at the mercy of the studio or the financing company or whatever that might be. Staying in the lower budgets has allowed me to move creatively with great freedom. And then what I do is I transfer that freedom over to the filmmaker, and it allows the filmmaker to make something that is creatively unfiltered. So I do have a movie in development at New Line that they are threatening to make here pretty soon, and I have stuff that's bigger budgeted that wouldn't be able to be made sort of in my system. So I'm always open to stuff that's bigger, but I think even when I lose the total creative freedoms by working, in the system, I don't think I change necessarily. I mean, just the other day, I really, went to the mat with a studio executive over some creative notes on a movie we're working on, and it was an uncomfortable phone call because I don't think they've really experienced someone standing up for their director in the way that I had, and it sort of makes a strange relationship moving forward for me with studio executives. But that's okay because I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
So I think anyone that sees my name on a movie, and certainly Bonfire Legend moving forward, is the ethos of Dallas, me as a producer, the ethos of me as a producer moving forward without a real a sort of a based, I've got a real based attitude right now that just doesn't care what people think about me. I've had my fair share of attacks and dealt with them in my own way, and I'm proud of me and my career and my company. So I don't see us softening up too much. But that said, there are some stories that I'm really interested in telling and scripts I'm developing that really don't have any violence at all in them. But the violence to me can come in all shapes and sizes. It can come from disingenuous morality and the thought police and all kinds of stuff. So it's not sometimes when characters are quote in peril, it's not because a gun is being pointed at them. It's that their way of life is under attack.
Dallas, this might be a loaded question, but I'm just curious, what is Hollywood now to filmmakers? Because, I talk to a lot of independent filmmakers in the States, and a lot of them film outside of Los Angeles and outside of New York. They film in places like Texas, which you are based in, which you were born and raised in. It's really interesting watching a lot of, it almost seems like this purge of people in the entertainment industry and different types of things with a podcast hosts or musicians or filmmakers leaving California, going to places like Texas and establishing themselves there. What's Hollywood now? Is it the dream factory it used to be, or has it become something else?
Well, I think that most people that work in big Hollywood, when we say big Hollywood, we talk about big Hollywood like the mainstream media in America talks about big tech or things like that. So big Hollywood is Netflix and the streamers, it's Paramount and the studios, it's the major agencies that represent the actors, it's most movie stars, things like that, big Hollywood. To me, it's a different world, right? I came out of USC Film School in 2002, right as a lot of the corporate mergers were happening. And so what I found was a deep-seated insecurity, people not being willing to fall on the sword in order to get their movie made, a lot of decisions made by committee so that there was a cover to be provided for these executives if a movie didn't work. And really just over time, especially in Obama's second term, just this unbelievable shift to the left.
Yeah.
And I didn't shift to the left. It's not that I became more right. In fact, I just never changed.
Yeah.
I continue to like the same movies as an audience member, and I continue to make the same movies as a filmmaker. So I'm very happy. And if I have to exist outside of big Hollywood to follow my own dreams or to give filmmakers opportunity that Hollywood isn't giving them, that's okay with me. And by the way, most of the filmmakers that I work with, they're not conservatives. I mean, listen, I am a conservative and a proud conservative and openly conservative, but I also don't seek an echo chamber of making conservative movies or only working. I mean, that's only working with conservatives. I mean, that's just so boring to me.
Yeah.
I'll be honest and fair. I think most of the great creatives tend to be more liberal in the world.
Yes.
And so I don't know the great conservative chef that just opened up that amazing new restaurant down the street. I don't think that exists.
I think people tend to forget that Steven Spielberg and John Milius are good friends, right? So it can
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, exactly. And Milius, man, I mean, boy, do we miss him.
Yes.
He's got a couple of scripts kicking around that we might be able to help make one day. But we certainly miss his presence as a director in the film industry. But when one worldview becomes 97% of an industry, that's a major problem, in my opinion.
Yes,
So I seek to push back against that. And if I have to go independent and underground like Dennis Leary and Demolition Man, well, then so be it.
And I think a really great thing that's happening now is that Run, Hide, Fight is being released through the Daily Wire. They are more of a news kind of agency now, delving into the entertainment industry. And I'm a big fan of the Daily Wire and the stuff that they do there.
Yeah.
And to me, this kind of shift allows variety, and I think that's something that a lot of people kind of seek in their film watching, and I'm sure a lot of producers seek in their filmmaking as well. When you found out that the Daily Wire were jumping into the entertainment pool and they were looking to distribute content that was, wanted to project ideas and thoughts and stories that an industry have rejected now for the last decade or so, what does that say to you as a filmmaker? Does it just show like such a great opportunity now where movies like Run, Hide, Fight can live and breathe?
I hope that I get to make a bunch of movies for the Daily Wire. I am so excited by the way that this movie has been released. The amount of views on the trailer, the amount of views on the opening night premiere streaming, the audience size since then who've watched it on the Daily Wire's website and apps and things like that. The way that the audience has rallied online with good reviews to combat the sort of systemic critical hatred is really impressive, and it's awesome. It feels great to be completely frank. I will make movies for anyone that wants me to make a movie for them. But I'm so enamored with the folks at the Daily Wire, just in terms of sharing a worldview with me, but also really just being genuinely good people and good partners. And it's amazing that when they say they're going to do something, they go and do it, and their team is sharp, and they're all really supportive of each other and supportive of the movie. And I've made 30 to 40 new friends just at the Daily Wire alone in the last 3 weeks going through this process. So I can't say enough about them. I think every filmmaker should be trying to work with them. And if I can be a big part of that moving forward, then I'll be thrilled. I'm still making some movies that won't be a perfect fit for the Daily Wire, and will continue to make my movies available to other distributors. And I think as long as the movie is good, and as long as I make something that's undeniable to be released, I think I can have a successful career making movies for the Daily Wire, for Hollywood, for independent movies, things like that. I'd like to really uh, put the movie out where it's best suited for the audience. And right now, the most impressive so far has been the Daily Wire.
Well, for everyone listening out there, Run, Hide, Fight is available now at the Daily Wire. I strongly recommend you watch this movie. I gave the film a positive review. I absolutely loved it. I love especially what Isabelle May is doing, and I can't wait to see what Kyle Rankin does as well. And I can't wait to watch more of your films, Dallas. I'm such a big fan of the films that you have released. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking today, and I thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much. We've got a movie coming out via Vertical and Netflix later this spring called The Seventh Day with Guy Pearce and Vadir Derbez and Stephen Lang. And then we have a movie coming out this fall called Till Death with Jason Sudeikis and Evangeline Lilly from the writers and one of the directors of Big Bad Wolves, the amazing Israeli film from a few years ago. So we got some good stuff coming out, and certainly if you haven't seen any of the Zoller movies or the Standoff at Sparrow Creek or VFW, highly recommend going back into our catalog and checking it out. But just, thanks again, Matt. Really appreciate you having me on the show and giving me a chance to talk about it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dallas.
Thank you.